Okay, everyone. In this video, we're going to look at assigning shaders in USD files. We're going to look at two different techniques. Of course, there's the auto assignment, which is preferable as the default material we're going to use for the asset most of the time. But then we're also going to look at using a delta to do a shader override. And these workflows are parallel to how you would approach assigning materials inside Unreal Engine. So we'll crack open Unreal and look at that as well, just so you can see how they're equivalent workflows. Let's get started. So let me just get rid of this. So we have an empty scene here. This is going to be our model scene, and then we're going to have a separate USD for the material. And okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and we'll add another X form. We'll call this top. Okay, and then we'll add a cube. We'll put the cube under our top null just to keep nice and organized, and we'll assign an Omni PBR shader. Okay, we can set that to a nice purplish blue color, and we will also store this under our top null. So now we're nice and organized with our geometry and our shaders. With that done, we'll come over to our Layers tab, and we'll create a new USD file. I'm just going to overwrite this material. We are not going to transfer our root layer contents into the new layer, so click no for that. Save. We'll set the material layer as our authoring layer, and we'll assign a material here as well. And we'll just crank that up, make it a nice bright red color. Notice that it's not being applied to our geometry. That's because it is still being overwritten by this purple shader, which is on a higher layer. But that's okay. So we'll save that, and we can move the authoring layer back, unload our material shader layer, and there we go. We'll save this again. Now all we have to do is pop into our material USD and make sure we're all set up with the same hierarchy that we see here. So we need our looks folder underneath our cube top null, and we should be good to go. So load this up and take a look at the hierarchy. Still looks is not under the top null at the moment, but that looks about right. And if we look here, this is our nice bright red shader. Save that. Okay, now that both our model and our material are using the same hierarchy, whenever we load these both into the same scene, as long as our material is higher in the layer stack, it will override the shaders that are the default shader that is applied to the model. So let's open a new scene, and we'll bring in our model. There it is with the default nice purple blue shader. And let's bring in the material. And this will automatically assign and override. So if we look at these two hierarchies, they will be identical. And that's really how you want to be doing your default shader assignment. Manually doing a delta each time leaves the door open to the wrong shader getting applied before a render is set off, or just confusion between, say, the look dev team and the lighting department. And so you want to make sure that these are being auto assigned most of the time. We will go ahead and look at doing an override, which is something you might be more familiar with seeing inside Unreal. So let's pop over there and see the equivalent sort of workflow. Okay, here we are inside Unreal, and real quick, I just want to show you why a shader assignment and a shader override both might be useful. So you might have, let's say you have an asset like this, just you know, um, a cabinet, and this is in sort of all kinds of levels. You have scenes in a mechanic shop, you have scenes in a doctor's office, you have levels where you're in a basement of a office building, in the, wherever. So you're using this asset in numerous different places. But maybe there's one particular scene where it's one level, you're only in there, one time, and you need to modify this asset. Well, you don't want to necessarily duplicate the asset as an entirely separate um, object in your project, and you don't want to build a shader that is going to, with a switch in it, let's say, that carries all of that extra data with it, every time it's loaded in all of the other levels. So what do? Well, this is a perfect opportunity to use just a simple shader override, which is going to take precedence for this asset when it's in a particular level. And I just whipped up a quick override shader here, so there's nothing special about that. It's just this, except I put a multiply node in here to show that it's different. Okay, so this is our static mesh, and this is the default shader that's applied to it. And that's great for 99% of the levels that we're going to be placing this in. But if we do need to modify it, whether it's just, very slightly just for one particular instance where it's going to be on screen, we can do a shader override. And that's specific to this level. So, even here in the static mesh, if we open it up, we're still going to see there's that base material is still on it. But, we've modified it just in this one instance, and all of our other levels are going to remain unaffected, and this will only apply, when we're in this specific instance. So that's kind of one of the main benefits for material overrides. And the same thing is true here as it is in Omniverse using a USD workflow. So let's pump back over there, and we'll use a delta on a layer inside Composer to do an override, for the USD model. Okay, so we're back in USD Composer, and we're looking at our beautiful red cube that has a model from the modeling team with the default, purple shader on it, and then we have our fantastic look dev that's come out of our look dev department. Now, in order to do an override that makes any sort of sense, these would normally be packaged into a single USD, and you'd be referencing that into your scenes. So let's put that together. We'll take a new USD file. We'll call this cube assembly. Well, and our material. There you go. Then we can go ahead and save our assembly. Okay, and let's go to a new scene. In our new scene, it's got everything referenced in underneath it. Of course, it's got the model and the material, and we're all set to go. But in this instance, we want to do an actual override on top of what's coming through the pipeline. Again, all we have to do, create a new USD layer. We'll call this view override. All right. In this, if we set this to our authoring layer, we can say, you know what, for this scene in particular, just like the electrical box in Unreal, we need a different shader, or we need a slight variation in our shader. So we can just assign a new PBR shader, and you'll see that come through right away. And if we look over here, now we're using deltas to create and assign and override the shader that's on our cube model down here. Our cube model came out of the modeling team. It had to have some sort of basic default shading on it. The look dev team worked their magic and made us a beautiful series of shaders for the entire animation team and our lighting team. They're rendering it. And then in one particular scene, the lighting is hitting it just a little bit differently. You know, the roughness and specular highlights, they're just not working for the client. We don't need to go back through look dev or anything. The lighting artist can simply add a small delta on top of, you know, everything that's come through the pipeline and tweak it to exactly where it needs to be, and then render out the scene and pass it to comp as normal. So it's a very powerful, very flexible workflow where we're using these deltas to make minor adjustments in the appropriate department. All right, thanks a lot, guys, and I'll catch you on the next video. If you have any questions, just leave a note in the comment. Thanks a lot. Bye.